sharing with our children and embedding in them early on, especially to counteract what we see is going on in our culture and in schools. So I really appreciate it. I'm excited for them to arrive and to start reading them to my girls already. So thank you for doing that as well. So, I don't know if you know this, but I have to start off by thanking you for your book, A Letter to the American Church. And I know that we're going to speak about religionless Christianity today, but I need you to know that as a Catholic, during the pandemic, that I was extremely disappointed, isolated, scared, and frustrated with my church. And I didn't know where to turn. I didn't know what to do. And I'm so grateful for Rob McCoy, who obviously is a good friend of yours and of mine as well. He recommended that I read the book. And after I read the book, I took it to my priest at my former church because it didn't go the way that I had hoped that it would go. But it was such a beacon of hope, and to understand that what I was feeling was I was not alone, and that I was feeling something that, like you mentioned and broke down in that book, something was seriously amiss. Yeah. And that the church needed to step in, and what their interpretation of what the Bible was in times of hardship, such as the pandemic, was actually askew. So I wanted to thank you for writing that book, and now for writing this book, Religionless Christianity. Have you been getting feedback like that?
Oh yeah. Well, it's so wild because I've written the new book, Religionless Christianity, which is a Bonhoeffer phrase. I'll explain it in a few minutes, but it's the sequel to Letter to the American Church. And Letter to the American Church, I mean, the new book is my 15th book, and I have never written books just for Christians. Everything I write is meant to reach everybody. Usually it's faithful Catholics or serious evangelicals who read my books. But they can give them to their friends. You don't need to be where I am theologically or politically or whatever. But these two books, Letter to the American Church and the new one, Religionless Christianity, the sequel, they're the only books I've ever written directly to people who say, oh, I'm a Christian. So my attitude is, okay, you're a Christian. Well, then you need to know what happened to the church, to so-called Christians in Germany in the 30s, because the parallels are stunning. They're stunning. And I only know this because I happened to write a book on Dietrich Bonhoeffer and on the failure of the church to step up. And good people fail to step up. It's not all, pro-Hitler people or pro-Marxists in our own time. It's just people that kind of think, oh, I'm too busy and that's not my thing, and I don't think I need to, and whatever. So the parallels were so astonishing to me. I said, I got to write this book called Letter to the American Church. And I don't say this kind of stuff lightly. I knew God called me to write this book. It was I've never had this feeling in my life. I just felt like God communicating that to me, not in any overtly mystical way, but in a way that I had no doubt it was God. And, you can't prove that, but I don't need to prove it. I just knew that I had to do it because I knew that God was asking me to do this. And so I was going to self-publish it because I just thought it's going to be the shortest book I ever write. It's just a message to speak to Christians, and it'll get to whoever it's going to get to. I'm just going to do my assignment. But I went to a convention, Christian broadcasting convention. And my publisher wanted to meet with me to talk about some books that they had in mind. And I thought, well, I'm going to write this book. I don't want to publish it with anybody. I'm not going to even tell anybody about it. I'm just going to do it. But I'll take the meeting. So I go to the meeting, and at the meeting, they said, we've got an idea for a book for you to write. And they basically described this book. I said, this is crazy. This is a miracle. It's confirmation from God that I'm supposed to write this, and therefore I will publish it with them. So I published it with them. But I never had that experience before, this urgency that I had to get the message out. And as you know, I was speaking on all around the country. And in the beginning, I was speaking about it. And two women that are Hollywood veterans, that they said, we need to make a documentary film. And obviously you're familiar with that because you're in it. But I never had the wildest idea that there would be a documentary film. So I want to tell everybody up front, please, please, please go to the website, lettertotheamericanchurch.com. If you go to lettertotheamericanchurch.com, you can get the book, you can get the DVD of the film, you can watch the film. And then there's a ton of churches around America that are good churches because they're screening the film. We're offering that to churches for free. So it's kind of exciting. And of course, in the midst of all this, I've been thinking I need to say more on the same subject, which is why I wrote Religionless Christianity, which is really just, it's a little bit like the how-to of Letter to the American Church, I guess.